Thank you all for joining us on another webinar. As Juan said, we're going to go over some MS Teams queue reporting and dashboards. As you can see, I've got my initial dashboard up here. We're gonna come back to this later on in the presentation. I just wanted to show it just to have my banner coming across the screen. So what I'm going to do is hop into the call analytics and reporting first of all. And I'm just going to stay in this history screen briefly here just to show what we've got. I'm going to remove this call type. So the search, what I usually do for queues is I just type a queue in there and call queue. This is a field that we've added to our software to make it easier to group on call queues and see who's answering those call queues. This was added a few releases ago, and it makes things a lot easier. We persist this data through so we can, like I said, do a better job of grouping and giving you an idea of who's answering or who's not answering your calls coming into your queue. So when I choose this, I'm going to add criteria. And I'm going to choose my new call queue. What I'm also going to do is turn on the show historical options. So if you've got any older queues that have been deleted or no longer in use, and you still want to see data on those back to when they were in use, you can turn this on, and then you notice when you click in here, it gives you these options with the flag. Mine are kind of, being a test lab, we've been playing around with this a little bit. So they're all named the same. You probably won't see that in your environment, but I'm just going to add these because there is some call history on some of these. And you'll see in the results, it does consolidate these into just the one name, new call queue. My search time window is previous quarter. That's where I've got quite a bit of my data. And I'll be using that throughout the presentation. So if I click on view results, it's going to go and gather all those calls for the queues. And notice I've got the plus symbol here. So this expands these out. So what these are, I'm doing it in sequence. So there's 11 sequences. There's a lot more calls that match my criteria. As you can see, I've got this call queue name field here. And within this one sequence, we're persisting this through. And like I said, that's more for the grouping to allow us to do the grouping on the called party username. You'll see that later on a couple of my reports later on. But this gives you the full journey of that call coming into your queue. Looks like this particular one, Victor, went to Victor. He didn't answer, it's not connected, and went to him again, not connected. Then it jumped over to our auto attendant into a different queue, and then back to Victor. That time he answered it. So yeah, Victor is in two queues, the new call queue and the test queue, but this one kind of rolled through and just showing the different legs of this call. So you can expand these out with that, or you can click on the plus up at the top and it'll expand all of these out. So like I said, we're going to kind of look at this in a report. So that's where I'm going to head over now. And I've got some basic reports. I just did a search on webinar just to keep it easy here. And these are my reports that I created for this webinar here. So the overall, this is pretty basic. And what I'm doing here with my search set, I'm just looking for all my queues. So I want to see the activity or how many calls are coming into all of my queues here. I just got to 2 of them with a couple of deleted ones. And I'm going to group it by date or day of years, kind of get me a breakdown of when these calls are coming into my call queues. Just showing total call count, average duration, and total call duration. So when I run this report, like I said, it's going to be pretty basic. Again, I'm going to run it for my search time window of previous quarter. That's where a lot of my data is, and for this purpose, I'm going to export it to HTML, download it. It should be pretty quick here. And there we go. Let me blow this up for you. So this is my search set. Includes both call queues, a total of 91 calls, and your average duration and total call duration. And then what I've done is broken it down by day. And this is only including the days that had calls to those queues. So you can see the breakdown of each day, the calls to both queues. And then down here, I've got it graphed out for each day, total amount of calls for each day here. So being my data is kind of sparse in the lab here, you don't see, I know I've done the previous quarter, but you only see a handful of days here that have the data. And how I did that is go back here, and in the grouping, I set the minimum primary grouping call duration to 1. So the grouping for the day, date, and year has to have at least 1 call. If I had that to 0, you'd see a bunch of you'd see every day basically with a bunch of zeros. Got to be a little bit too busy for the display here, so I changed that. So we're going to cancel out of there. And like I said, that's high level. This report here, I did the same thing as far as my search set and my grouping. I'm going to group by call queue name. So I get an idea of how many calls are coming into each queue, as well as a total for both queues. So we'll just do that same time period, run this guy, open it up. Increase it for your eyes here. So again, the total of 91, same as the previous report, but then the breakdown of each queue. So 52 to the our test call queue, 36 to the new call queue, and there's a couple unassociated. We didn't have a queue associated with these 3, but it does, give you 91. And then here I broke it down by hour, so you can see your busiest hour for each call queue. So this being the test call queue, where's my busiest hour or hours during the day? Again, this is kind of spread out to the quarter. If you're going to do it weekly, it may make more sense as far as your busy hour for the week. You can break this down any number of ways. You can break it down by day, see what your busy day is, and so forth. And we'll get to that in a couple of the dashboards to show you. The next report is who is answering my queue calls and who is not answering the queue calls. So this one, same, I'm just going to focus on one of those, the new call queue. And my grouping, I'm going to group on called party names. So that's going to come into play of who's getting these, or who are the calls presented to and whether they're answering. And my search back to grouping, and this is my stats for the people answering, the users answering the calls. So I'm going to show the total call sequence, duration, the average and total, and how many connected, how many not connected. Let's go ahead and run that guy. And it's going to be a little bit busy, and I'll show you why in a second here. So for this call queue, there was, let me blow that up for you, 11 sequence count. And I'm doing sequence count because remember when we went through that history, there were 11 sequence calls. So there's a total of 11 calls coming in. They may hit this queue multiple times or have this in multiple times in one sequence. And we want to get an overall, how many total calls are coming in, or total individual calls are coming into my queue, and who's answering those. And like I said, this gets a little busy here. You call party name. We've got a couple that's a new call queue here, new call queue here, auto attendant. And what I'm really looking for is my users. In this particular case, it's Vic and myself. So there is a way to get rid of this extra noise, because this is focusing on each leg of the call, not the call sequence. So what I did in my next report, a couple different ways of doing this. So I've got my same call queue search set. And in this case, I'm using called party user agent type. There's 2 choices for this, either a client user agent or service user agent. I'm going to choose a client user agent, and that's going to focus on just the users of my call queue. And you'll see the difference here in a second. There's other ways to do it. You could do, if your users in that call queue are in the same department or in a couple different departments, you can add a search type for department, or if you've got them in a team within Teams, you can choose that team and it'll filter down and eliminate those extra values in that results. Let's go ahead and run this guy. And I think I do have details turned on this one in Cradle to Grave. Yeah, so here I've got total call count of 24. Like I said, most of the time you'll want to see the total sequence count, so just 11 individual calls coming into that queue. They could be hitting the queue multiple times, but I want to see overall how many calls are coming into my queue, which is 11. 5 of those were answered for a total average call duration of 20 seconds. And here's my breakdown. You'll see I've got it narrowed down to just Vic and myself, and how many calls were presented to us. Now, these totals will not match this because a call, like we saw in that example on the history screen, a call could be directed to Victor multiple times, or it could be directed to me. He doesn't answer. It goes to, or goes directed to Victor. He doesn't answer. It goes to me and rolls through the queue. Each of those is going to count as one, either not connected or connected. So keep in mind that these totals will not always match up to these. We've done a couple CUCM webinars on this, reasons why these don't match. And it's similar, but it depends on the platform. But you won't always get the match there if that's what you're looking for. But again, answer call count. So Victor had 1, I had 3, and not connected. It was presented to Victor. Some of these calls went to Victor multiple times, so he had 9. I just have the 2 here, so that equals my 5. These should match as far as if you're using not connected and answered, and then your durations. And then I do have it broken down the overall. So total calls, answer call, voicemail call, not connected by hour. So that's for the queue. And here I've got it broken down by date. It gets a little busy with having the quarter and calls spread out. And then here are the details. So it's broken down. The calls presented to Victor are listed here. And you get the details. You can add and remove columns for what you want to see on this. More for troubleshooting. Most people just want to see the results at the top. And then my calls here. And then down here is the Cradle to Grave sequence. So what you see in orange for our Cradle to Grave, if you're not familiar with that, is what matches the search set. So remember, I had new call queue as my queue name and client user agent. So this one here, new call queue matches, but service user agent does not match. So that's why that's not included. But then the Cradle to Grave gives you all the legs before or after these calls. I'm not going to go through the details of these calls, but just to show you what the Cradle to Grave does show for you. All right. That's all I've got for reports. Looks like we're on time here, so I'm going to switch gears and go over to dashboards and widgets. This guy load up. All right. So what I've got here, as soon as it loads, is just some summary stats for both queues. I broke it down to new call queue and test call queue. I've got the same stats in both. Notice we've got total call count again, total sequence count 11. This is the magic number here. And then your total average duration. I've got a percentage in there, answer call percentage. Answered count is 5, not connected to 11. And if you're looking at this and your math is good, you're going to say, well, 5 answered, 20% does not equal 5 out of 11, should be more closer to 50%. True. What we're doing here for this percentage is using the total call count, which we realize is not too beneficial because this is not reflective of how many were answered out of that sequence count. So we've made a change that's not in the software yet. It's scheduled to be released in the newest release, which I believe is scheduled. I don't want to sometime April timeframe, April, May, early May timeframe, where we're going to base this percentage on total, answer, how many answered out of the total sequence count. So your percentages will make more sense there. Same here. So say test call queue, 15% is not, 6 out of 38 is 15%, not 6 out of 14. Down here, let me just go through one of these just to give you an idea how I set this up. So this is a call statistics widget. That's my type. Refreshes 15 minutes, and you can change the your color and icons if you want. But then your statistics, what you want to see in the stats bar that was on that widget. You can add video call count, screen share count if that's useful to you. And then we go down search set, and you'll notice this is very similar to what we had in the reports. The new call queue set here, and I'm just interested in the ones that are showing as user agent. And then my time period is previous quarter. Right. This widget here, similar to what we saw in the report, broken down by user. And this one I did do, I believe, by department. I mentioned that in, yeah. So I was choosing my new call queue to eliminate some of that extra stuff in the results. I'm using call party department because both the users are in the technical support department, so I'm able to get away with it here. You can always add, say I had a couple people in the answering the queues in my customer success, you can add that in there. Time period will be the same. So again, gives you your total call count for each user, how many were answered, how many not connected, and your total call, average call duration. So similar to the report, but a quick glance to give you, stats. This can be a daily report if kind of monitor for current day to see what's happening in your queues and who's answering those calls. And then I've got a couple. Again, I've got new call queue and test call queue. It's same widgets basically from here to here, here to here. This one showing missed calls, how many were not connected for that queue, and how many were connected. Just give you a quick visualization on your queues, how many calls are being not answered or answered. Similar to this guy here with just a different queue. Call queue busy hour. So where are my calls coming into the queue? Which hours are busiest? Again, this can be, this is previous quarter. It can be a daily or weekly. See which busy hour is for each day of the week, or per day. You can break it down that way as well. And help with staffing for your queues. If you got to add more people at a certain time, like 3 o'clock hour or 10 o'clock hour. Same with this queue. Right after lunch is when it gets a little bit busier. And then I did do this call history details, very similar to the history screen we went into initially, but this just shows the events. It does not sequence them. It does not put them together. So it's probably not the best widget to have on your dashboard unless you just want to see a quick glance, some of the stats here on details. I think a report is better for that. But the reason I kind of kept it on my dashboard here was I noticed that my calling party number, I've got a lot of the same calling party coming in. And then I thought this would be great for a top X amount callers calling in. Say you've got a call queue that's internal, maybe a help desk call queue, and you want to see if there's repeat callers coming into that queue. Somebody abusing it, or are they just really having that many problems where they have to call the help desk, multiple times, either a day or a week. So this would be a great way to do that and kind of monitor that. Just to go through this configuration setting here. Grouping stats, I'm grouping on my calling party number, because that's what I want to see, how many repeat callers are calling in, calling party. And down here, this defaults to 5. I upped it to 10 just to show that go up to 50. So this would be a top 10, callers. Again, because of the lack of data here, I'm only showing the 3 there. But, and then my search sets will be the call queue. This is for both call queues. So, and it depends on your environment, what you want to see in there. And again, my time period, previous quarter. So, and again, broken down by calling party. So this number here called in 18 times during the previous quarter with an average call duration of 24. Again, a great way to kind of monitor, if you've got somebody abusing that call queue, or do they truly have issues that need to be addressed. So I think that's all. Yep, that's all the widgets I have to show in the reports. Hopefully I shed some light and make the call queue reporting a little bit easier for you, or give you some hints to get through that.